Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Josh Rubin
And Jeannie Rubin.
from East West Healing. We are here today, Thursday, for episode number 27 of Conscious Nutrition,
Yes, we are.
which we typically do on Facebook Live. And today we felt a little bit risque and decided to have a different background, as well as stream live on Facebook and Instagram at the same time.
So we're here and we're there.
We're here and we're there. So you're going to see us go up and down. I don't know of any other way to do it. I've looked up. So if anyone has any great ideas besides using two phones, let me know. But this is what I have found last minute. So this is what we're doing because people on Instagram keep talking about how they want to be here for the lives and they can't. So for now, this is what we're going to do. This allows us to get to two kind of social platforms at once. As always, you'll find in the comment section below after we kind of do the video, I'll put them in the comment section. If you're on Instagram, you can actually click on the link in our profile and find these two things in the link in our profile. But for Facebook, I'll post them in the comment section. We offer a free 15-minute consult. That's for anyone. It's complimentary. It's a chance for us to talk with you, answer some of your questions, kind of fill you in on our philosophy and how it slightly differs from others and how it might be able to help you. So you can definitely click on that link for your free 15-minute consultation.
Yes.
The second thing is we have our Restoration Thyroid audio series, which concludes a 7-part audio series on how to heal your adrenal and thyroid with food, aka metabolism, as well as a simple ways to assess thyroid health guide that you get when you subscribe, as well as many other great things, once you subscribe. So definitely click on that link once I post it. If you're on Instagram, just click the link in our profile and you can find it. And we will, and you can download that. So once again, for anyone joining, we're streaming live on Facebook and Instagram, so we're going to be up and down. As always, if you have questions throughout this, please post them in the comments below. Well, let's kind of get to it.
Let's get to it. So one of the questions that we often get from people, and you may experience this as well, is how exactly are you going to help me use food to heal my thyroid? Because I've done X, Y, and Z nutrition plans, I've done an autoimmune diet, I've done elimination diets, I've done every diet in the book, and nothing has helped up to this point. So what are you going to be doing differently that's going to be helping me? And I think this is an important question for us to begin to kind of speak to you guys about and start talking about, because it's very, very, very effective. However, it does require a strategy and it is a rebuilding process. So it's not just going from 0 to 100, and it's not just eating X, Y, or Z or not eating X, Y, or Z that's going to get you to the next place in your healing process.
Right. Did you say without a thyroid too?
No. That's
the other question we get is like, how can really food help me if I don't have a thyroid? And I think we wanted to cover those because it's the most common question we get. And as Jeannie said, people say, I've worked with people for that before and it doesn't work. So we want to kind of explain our approach in a very simplistic way, of course, because if you go to our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel, our Facebook channel, there's so much content, as well as our website, eastwesthealing.com, to learn more about our philosophy. But I think if we start from kind of like where you come from, it'll make more sense than just talking about the food. And I think people, when they don't feel well or they have a thyroid issue, whatever it may be, they think about here and now. What's causing it right now. And we have to remember, you've heard us say this, that we are everything from conception till now, right? Everything that happened while we're in the womb throughout our entire life. So we have to kind of really think about that and the journey that got us here, whether we've been living in a fear state our entire life,
Go ahead.
whether we've had trauma, whether we've had certain stressors, or maybe we're not even able to identify what these are. But to really summarize it, whatever it is, it kind of shapes our nervous system. It shapes the state of our physiology, right? And in a simple sense, it states whether or not we're in a balanced state or a not a balanced state. It really tells us if we're in a homeostatic state, harmonic state, or we're in this kind of like, symptom state all the time, or disease state, or we could say like balance or inflammatory state. And of course, when we're talking about the nervous system, we're talking about parasympathetic and sympathetic, right? So most people shaped their nervous system throughout their entire life, and in the sense of like we should be able to balance it, right? Go into the sympathetic, which is like, running from a lion, freezing, etc. Usually when we're like exercising, moving, or stressed, we'll just use the term stressed. And then come back to that parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, and really find the balance. The problem is the way our society is moving is we're always in that sympathetic state. So physiologically, we've been in that state for a long time. So that's kind of all our body knows, and we shape it to be that way, right? And it kind of
not always knowingly. I just want to continue to.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to also say that when we think about the nervous system, because that is essentially what we are working with, the nervous system dictates the physiology. It's kind of like it is what conducts your endocrine system. Is that when we speak of trauma is not an event, it's an effect on the nervous system.
Right.
So you may not, again, as Josh says, even realize that that's what's happening in your system. And it can be even preconception. And we'll talk more about that as, not today maybe, but we're going to be coming to you guys with a lot more of that stuff, because we've found that it's the bigger piece, and we've said this before, it's not really a nutrition issue that we're dealing with. What we're really looking at is a conditioning issue. And this goes way back. Preconception is it's a generational issue. So I think it's something that we need to connect to in order to be able to reconnect with ourselves and really begin to get outside of trying to fix, but be with and create something that's in support of.
Right.
So.
And it's the difference between chasing versus creating, right? Symptoms versus health. So I think that's the first thing in understanding what's going on, because a lot of people see a lab value or a diagnosis and they say, well, what can I do right now to fix this? And you have to understand that it doesn't happen overnight, because it didn't happen overnight for you to get to this place, right? Most people have had traumatic childhoods. Most people have been on diets since they were, in their 20s. Between medications and birth control pills and all these different things that are going on in a society where there's go, go, go and early education, we're being bombarded, right, and pushed into overdrive when we're super, super young. So when we get older, we start to see our body breaking down. It's almost like we go from having that acute stress to a chronic stress. So really what we're saying is...
I was kind of thinking before we went on today that we would talk maybe a little bit about the stages of disease, because there is an accumulative effect. And when we're talking about healing the body with food, it's kind of like we're doing that in reversal. So I'm going to let you talk about that, because I think those words get kind of twisted, and I get tongue twisted with some of those.
Yeah, so for people that are joining this, just FYI, it's the first time we're streaming from Facebook and Instagram today. That's why we're kind of looking up and down. Obviously, we're going to fine tune it, but we decided to do it last minute. Never thought of it before, so just so you know. So we have stages of disease or disorder, or whatever you want to call it. So we have homeostasis. This is a balance between the internal, external environment. This is a balance between the nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. This is a balance between the different hormones, right? We're able to create harmony. We're able to go into that stress state when we need to, build adaptation and resiliency, but come back to homeostasis, which can be seen by how we feel, can be seen by body temperature and pulse, HRV, respiration, whatever you want to use to really kind of know if you're in a homeostatic state. There's many ways to do that. Do you have something?
I just want to speak to that really quickly, because what we are seeing more and more as we move further and further into one generation to the next is that most people are coming in to the world in an imbalance. They are not in a homeostatic state.
Well, that would be so when we can't regulate and be in a homeostatic state, right? This is why, think about it. What is the hot topic in the health arena right now, and it's been for the past few years, and it's super hot right now? Biohacking, right? Everyone's trying to use sunglasses and red light therapy and different hormones and nootropics and all these different things to help biohack the system to balance out our nervous system, because what we're seeing is the evolution of the nervous system being so sympathetic dominant that our parasympathetic system doesn't even exist in most people. It is like, it's not even there, right? So when we go out of homeostasis, we go into this pathophysiological phase. And this is when we start seeing physiological changes, whether it be within your hormones, whether it be in the gut, whether it be with stress hormones, the adrenal hormones, etc. Now, for most people, we can kind of sense it, we can feel it. So we do the necessary things, lifestyle adaptation, modification, breathing exercises, whatever you want to do, to kind of move back to homeostasis, right? That is essentially, if you think about it, Hans Selye's general adaptation system. We go from the alarm, we progress, we should be able to go back. Most people don't, right? Because unfortunately, we're always doing. We're not aware really of what's going on in our life. And we say that just from being in this industry for a long time, but also being a human just like you, right? You go to the park with your child, and I'm playing with my son, and almost 90% of the parents there are on the park bench, on their phone, and their kids are playing. They could literally be taken up and stolen, and no one would even notice. We could be walking on the street, and we say hi to people don't even lift their heads up, right? So people aren't even truly aware of what's going on. If we think about what trauma is or stress is, it's separation from self. So we lose that sense of self or awareness. What's up, GT? So if we don't go back to homeostasis and we're in that pathophysiological phase, we go to pathomorphological. Pathomorphological is as we progress through those phases, we start seeing physical changes, whether it be in the cell, whether it be in the tissues, whether it be in our bodies, whatever it may be. It could be anything from inflammation in the cells, it could be inflammation in your body, to changes in your skin or your weight, etc.
And
right?
This is kind of the level that we're getting into as far as using food to restore thyroid health. We're starting to see some of those pathomorphological changes.
But going back to what Jeannie said, most people enter this world in a pathophysiological or pathomorphological state. And we truly believe that, and that's why most people are constantly chasing their health, right? So if we don't really do the necessary things, whether it be nutrition or lifestyle modifications, then we progress into the symptom stage, which that's pretty self-explanatory, and then we go into the more disorder stage, disease stage, and then death, right? So that's the progression. So those are the compensations. I know, Ian, we're using Instagram and Facebook, and with Instagram, you can't turn the camera sideways. So unfortunately, it has to be vertical, so it's really hard to fit two people in there.
We'll try to get closer because it is our anniversary today.
It is our anniversary today. We've been married how many years?
9
I'm just
years.
kidding. So what we're trying to do with our food is help people move and decompensate through that. Go from the symptom stage or the disease stage back to symptom, back to pathomorphological, pathophysiological, and get them back to homeostasis. So when we talk about people who have been compensating their entire life and we're helping them decompensate, that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? So thanks, guys.
And just kind of remembering that your food, that's what your food is actually designed to do. It's designed to regulate your system. So what we're looking at is more specifically what the system is that we are working with. And then again, what I like to look at is kind of doing for the body what it can't do for itself until it can. So we're stepping in and very strategically, and we'll talk more about this, but that's kind of where we're going with all of this, is looking at how do we begin to provide all of the necessary tools to upregulate energy production? How do we begin to get the tools in there that are required for thyroid conversion, which is essential, and we'll talk about those three pieces that are essential to energy production, how we can use our food to do that.
What's up, Eric, my friend? Thank you, buddy. So that's kind of the most important thing to think about, because I think a lot of us, and I talked about this many times, we don't really understand that, and we're in our comfort zone, and then we see something or read something, or we see that someone else is doing something, we jump so far outside our comfort zone that we react instead of respond mindfully into that kind of learning, fine-tuning, creating awareness zone. And that doesn't work, or that person didn't help me, so you go back to your comfort zone, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first thing to understand. And that's really what we're trying to do. Like people say, breathing is the remote control to the brain, right? Why? Because we're using breath to tap into the autonomic nervous system. But how do we do that? And this is a point to this. We do that because we slow down our breath, which is correlated with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And anytime we slow it down, it's correlated with parasympathetic nervous system. Physiologically, this isn't just like made up stuff. But at the same time, we begin to retain CO2 instead of blowing it all off, or the excess CO2 because people mouth breathe all the time, as well as bringing oxygen into the system. What does that do? That allows us to get oxygen into the system. That CO2 that now we're not blowing off allows us to use that oxygen at the cell level to produce energy. Energy helps us decompensate. So what we're trying to do with food is work on the other end of it. Breathing allows us to get oxygen into the cells, but we're using food, right, to increase the use of oxygen, sugar, and thyroid hormone in the cell, because that's what they use, those 3 or 4 things, to increase energy production. So we're using the side of it to tap into the autonomic nervous system, so we don't have to do any of the crazy stuff that people are doing. Because if you think about it, we need food to thrive. That's it. We don't need sunglasses or red light or nootropics to thrive, right? We need food. You can't deny that, right? Now it comes down to certain foods, of course. Now the biggest thing when you're talking about thyroid health is, of course, regulating the stress physiology, right? And the stress physiology is exactly what we talked about from, homeostasis, etc. Because if you don't regulate what's happening in the system with the HPA axis or HPT axis, and you try to heal, you can't heal, right?
And that's where most people are. And we've talked about this again before, is everybody's really working so hard. And it's not that the steps are wrong, they're just kind of maybe out of order, or again, there's not enough of a foundation, but we're trying to work from a place of chaos. And when I say chaos, I'm going back to that HPA-GT axis, really, because there's a lot of different things connected to that. But again, you might be hitting one point, you may be reducing a stress on the system, great, but on the overall, we're not resetting that neurological system, okay, which is driven, again, neurologically. It's kind of like a computer. It has certain pathways that it functions on very, very specifically. It's like the motherboard. But so we have to interrupt that. We have to get in there and very strategically begin to interrupt that nervous system and quiet it down.
That's the key. We have to quiet down the heightened state of the sympathetic nervous system.
Heightened state that shuts the thyroid down. So you cannot do both at the same time.
Right. And that's an important piece right there. And that's why in the beginning, when we work with people in our phase 1 of our 4-phase system, we're trying to use food and food frequency to really regulate the stress on the autonomic nervous system, to quiet down the excitement of the sympathetic. It doesn't happen overnight, of course, but we have to start there and build up the parasympathetic. At the same time, reteach the liver how to store glycogen, and that's the other key. Because if you don't do that, you can't regulate thyroid health. I know there's a lot of people out there that say this food is good for the thyroid because it has iodine. You can't look at it like that. You can't look at it so black and white. And it has to be looked at from the principles of the human body. And we know that the thyroid produces thyroid hormone. How does it get converted? Of course, it gets converted in the gut, the kidneys, but a lot of it gets converted in the liver. Now, the liver is not just a detox organ, right? The liver stores glycogen for many reasons. Probably the number one reason is because the liver uses that glycogen through different enzymes, as well as selenium, to convert T4, inactive thyroid hormone, to T3. Right?
A very large percentage of it.
Large percentage of it. We're talking like 80 to 85%, right? So if we don't store glycogen, which is actually the stress response, right? Because anytime we have a stress, whether it be, I'm working too much or overtraining, or emotionally we're stressed about something, that our body needs more energy. That's why Ray Peach says stress is the perceived need for sugar. Because anytime the body's under stress, it needs more energy. The only way we can get that energy is to store glycogen, right? Because that allows us to regulate inflammation, blood sugar, blood pressure. And when we don't, that's when we get the hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, etc., and have these inflammatory reactions. So we need to reteach the liver to store glycogen as well, because it helps to upregulate thyroid hormone production. And as well, we can use the sugar and the thyroid hormone at the cell level to produce energy that helps us decompensate through that process. Now, hi Ella.
Hi Ella.
So, I know it sounds complicated, but it's actually quite simple. We're using food to tap into the nervous system to reduce the stress cycle, take the burden off the adrenals, upregulate how the liver's working, how it can convert thyroid hormone so we can use it at the cell to produce energy. When your cells are producing energy, it's affecting 37.2 trillion cells within your body. You are a conglomeration of cells.
And all of your major organ systems. So it is when we talk about those tissues, I want you to realize that it is the tissues of your organ systems as well. So
Right.
it's a big deal. So and I want to just go back to the glycogen reserves. Naturally, again, we should be able to do that based on our diet. We have gotten so far away from the belief in food, our fear of carbohydrates, our reactivity to carbohydrates, the hyperglycemia that somebody's asking about right now. All of these things are that progression of the diseased state, or again,
Right.
that pathophysiology, that pathomorphological changes that are happening at the cellular level. So again, that's where we lose that ability to be able to store that glycogen. So now again, going back to doing for the body what it can't do for itself, we have to give it back. We have to teach it how to reuse those
And it takes
resources,
time.
and it takes time. But again, we're rebuilding the infrastructure. So we've talked about this again before, that root cause. Everyone's kind of searching for that root cause. You came in as a cell. You have multiplied into trillions of cells. Your root is your cellular energy. That is at the root of it all. That is the conductor of all your systems. So when we can work at that level, which we are able to identify through body temperature and
Exactly.
pulse, through subjective assessment, we can begin to again respond appropriately to what the body needs.
And meet the body's needs
and
instead of reacting.
to affect that nervous system and down-regulate those stress hormones so we can up-regulate that thyroid conversion.
Right. And is it easy? No, it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort. If any of our clients are on here, you can definitely speak up.
Yeah.
But it's not easy because it's taking us from that comfort zone where we can't stretch, grow, or really look at ourselves. And we're coming out of that now. We have to get vulnerable, right? Because we're trying to recreate ourself in a sense and get away from habits that don't serve us, or kind of repeating that definition of insanity. So it is scary, right? That's funny. All those likes just went up my nose.
But it is
It is scary, but it's beautiful at the same time because we're working at such a deep level and we're working at so many layers. The problem is, it's not a transformation. It's not a 30-day transformation. A transformation is working through this and coming out on the other end, and not only working with nutrition to heal your thyroid health, but becoming aware and realizing the other aspects of your life that are not working for you and not serving you, and really beginning to change to meet your body's needs and say, this is what I need to do every day to meet my body's emotional, physical, physiological needs. And not just think food is the end-all, be-all to healing. It is a huge part of it. But this is why a lot of people don't heal, because they think it is the end-all, be-all. And they keep working through it and fine-tuning and working through it, right? You have to get past it.
What's the end-all, be-all?
Looking at all the other pieces and bringing everything together.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I lost you for a second.
Looking at all the different healing puzzles, right? So
I just want to say, so when we talk about all the different parts and pieces, okay, to go to all those different parts and pieces without having a level of resource can be very re-traumatizing for a lot of people, depending upon your story, your history, whatnot. So again, when you begin to kind of shift your attention into what you need nutritionally on a day-to-day basis, and really begin to down-regulate some of those stressors and really begin to observe what affects you and what doesn't affect you, we don't have to go chasing anything. We don't have to go looking for that emotional trigger, that trauma. We don't have to reignite that. We don't have to face it head on. We can resource ourselves in a whole nother level. And this is kind of, again, going back to nervous system, because again, not a nutrition issue, a condition issue.
Right.
It comes up when you're ready.
Exactly. It's what I said to a client yesterday.
Yes, when it's time for it to come up. It will show its face in the right moment.
Just acknowledge it. The writing's on the wall. It's there.
Yeah.
And when it's ready to surface, it'll surface automatically. So
it's very gentle. The whole process is a lot more gentle than trying to go at these different parts and pieces and hit it head on when, again, you're at a very depleted, deficient state where it's not going to again allow you to move forward.
So to summarize, right, the 4-phase system that we use and take people through, it's very technical, but we're really working with food, frequency, ratios, grams, to really tap into the nervous system, to reduce stress on the system, and upregulate cell energy production. That's what we're doing, which is seen through body temperature balance. Now, if you don't have a thyroid, people say, how can it help me? Well, it can help you because it can provide you with this huge foundation. Because you're putting energy into your system. You need thyroid medication, right? If you don't have a thyroid. And you don't have that foundation to support it. So what happens? People have to try different medications. They're constantly playing with a dose. They're constantly doing labs. They feel good. They feel bad, right? Because you don't have that foundation. The energy you're taking in is a huge stress to the system. So when you have that foundation, what it does is supports what you're taking in, right? So you can regulate your blood sugar. So the stress of what you're taking in or from anything else doesn't inhibit that conversion, right, that you're taking in. So it allows the conversion of the medication that you're taking in. It creates a foundation to help reduce the stress cycle and help you regulate blood sugar. So what I usually see with people that are on medication that don't have a thyroid is their ability to convert it goes up. They can usually over time lower their dose. They kind of find the right medication that works for them. They don't constantly have to play with different medications.
There's a lot more awareness.
There's a lot more awareness and a lot more of this kind of like a fine level of balance with everything versus constantly up and down with how you feel, your dose, your medication, etc.
And I think that awareness and I was talking to a client about this the other day, developing that level of awareness, and this is really true for people that don't have thyroid and are having to, you do have to go and get lab testing every so often when you don't have a thyroid. That's just standard procedure and necessary. But at the same time, when I've worked with people that don't have thyroids and have that medication, there's such this high level of uncertainty, which then creates a whole nother level of anxiety. So now as they begin to have this awareness and this understanding and now have more empowerment in how to nourish their bodies, again, as Josh says, things begin to stay a little bit more here. And again, when they do have fluctuations, they're very aware of how to meet that imbalance or to restore that balance in the system without so much added energy.
Now, this is something we're not just doing YouTubes about. This is not something we just talk about or write about. We talk about it because number one, we studied it and created it, but two, we use it with clients every day from around the world, right? So the results are there, right? They're there and it works. And it's really powerful, and it still to this day, after this many years, amazes us how much it works, right? But like we said, it's not overnight. It's not a quick fix, right? You have to dig deep and do a lot of work, but it does work. So let's answer some of the questions. Someone had a question about hyperglycemia. Usually that has to do with two different things. It means, I would say the most common is people are going too fast within their healing process. They maybe came from keto or paleo or not eating enough or enough of the right foods, and they went full bore with eating the carbs, and their body just can't process what's coming in fast enough. So my recommendation would be to slow down a little bit, maybe use a little less, and build up from there. The second question was, if I come from keto or paleo, something about building my body back up.
Where are you seeing that?
Where is it? Eat carbs for a time to bring my body back into balance. Yeah, because what you've done is you've taught your body, number one, to rely on fats for energy for its primary source. Basic physiology, that's not our primary source of energy, right? In a resting state, a resting homeostatic state it is, but how many people in a resting homeostatic state, right? And the thing is this, we use brown fat, not white fat, right? So there's a huge difference, and that industry is just toying with that and using it for extreme weight loss. The problem is you're doing it at the expense of damaging your metabolism, right? So, and at the same time, you're teaching your liver not to store glycogen. So what you're doing is you're getting energy from the stress response, right? So we have to really work slowly through that process with carbs because you can't flood the system. No. You're going to get hyperinsulinic, hyperglycemic, gain weight, etc. So we have to work slow through the process, not only with the foods, but the frequency, to really establish that foundation, right? So we can allow that stress response to come down really teach the liver to store glycogen, so we begin to get our energy from a more anabolic response in the system versus catabolic. So it does take time. Another question said, will eating more carbs make me funny like Josh?
I'm not even going to touch that one.
She's not going to touch that one, I guess. I remember you saying fructose is better for the cells than glucose. What if potassium in water from fruit messes with my sodium-potassium ratio, more salt? This is... I'm making a huge assumption here, but this is, I think, another, as many, problem with the healing journey. A lot of people are turning it into a chemistry experiment, right? And they're getting too involved with understanding the nitty-gritty of it, right? And the science of it. Now, there's a layer I think you need to understand, right? But if you're eating fruit and it's, I'm not sure the question, I think you're saying it's messing with your swelling, there's many other things to look at. A lot of it has to do with maybe you're not eating enough protein in relation to your fruit.
It's something more with the balance than it is
the chemistry of it. I don't think we have to go that deep to really understand it. I think the bottom line is this: the body uses fruit and needs fruit. From an evolutionary standpoint, it's there. We need it to thrive. How much? It's person dependent. How often? It's person dependent. But I think a lot of people are coming from a fear-based belief system of carbohydrates. So a lot of people don't eat a lot of fruits. They eat vegetables and other types of carbs. So when we start utilizing these carbs, which are so nutrient dense, our body can't process it because we kind of taught them not to. So you have to go very slow. So if you're eating fruit and you have a negative reaction, you eat less fruit. Maybe have fruits with roots, right? Maybe you have fruit every other meal or every other day. You have to really go slower if your body's having a reaction and not try to manipulate it by just adding more salt. So hopefully that.
And for some people, guys, it's literally a couple pieces.
Yeah, starting out,
it's literally as a couple pieces. So you really have to be careful. And how frequently, again, is so person dependent.
Yeah. Why wouldn't time-restricted eating allow certain GI issues to help repair the gut? I think it's person dependent. I mean, if someone is that reactive to food, you could use it to maybe quiet down the system. But from our approach, I've never really needed to do that, at least in my eyes. I mean, we work with people that literally poop blood every day in their stool, and we don't make them fast because this is the mindset, right? Do we chase the symptom and try to manipulate the system, right? And manipulate how we're living to manipulate the system, or do we actually create health by giving the body what it needs? And it's a different
manipulation.
It's a different manipulation, but it's a different way of looking at it. Instead of saying, how do we quiet down the gut, right? Because it's so overloaded. Do we just stop eating? Versus, what are we eating and how are we living? And what can we use to really quiet down the system right?
That affects the gut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we look at it from a different sense. And most people that we work with that have gut issues are eating offending foods like stems and leaves, which are vegetables, nuts and seed oils, processed carbohydrates, and all these things are very hard to break down, legumes, beans, etc. So we eliminate those things 100%. And we just use metabolic foods that are digestible to help heal the gut, and we go very, very, very slow. But the main goal is we can't heal it if we don't reduce the inflammation. We do reduce the inflammation by regulating cell energy production. Can some people have stable blood sugar with fewer than 4 to 5 meals a day? And is it possible to know by just feeding your body? You would know through how you feel and your body temperature and pulse. I think everyone is different. We all have a different life, history.
We're all at different levels of our
So can
journey.
someone regulate their blood sugar with 4 to 5 meals a day?
Less than 4 to 5 meals.
Probably not. I would say maybe 5. Sometimes 4. It just depends if someone's super sedentary and who they are. But
I would say 4 would be the bare minimum.
Bare minimum. Yeah. But I would say that Most likely not. Most people actually, I mean, maybe starting out, that's what you need to do, and you titrate up. But a lot of people, they don't need to go to 5 to 6 days. Some people, you have to look at what you're doing, what your baseline is. That's part of our philosophy. So if you come into this eating 2 meals a day, you're not going to go, okay, I need 5. I would say to a client, I want you to eat 3 meals a day. Right. And let's start there and work with the foods and create balance and work with some of the principles. And then once they kind of master that, then we go to 4 meals a day. So it's a process, right? We have to really meet the body where it's at.
But yeah, to answer your question, yes. But to tune in and actually get a better sense of it, take your body temperature and pulse. You know, if your mood, energy, sleep, emotions, everything is kind of in balance, you're probably doing pretty well.
If you're cold, does it mean you're hypothyroid? Yes and no. I mean, not necessarily. Of course, people that are in hyperadrenaline state typically will have colder hands and feet. It's a sign, but there's a lot of things. I mean, I work with some people that are always cold that aren't hypothyroid. They're more functionally hypothyroid. It's just a dysfunction in the metabolic pathway, and they're not producing energy at the cell level, right?
A lot of people have cold offices.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
that they sit in, the environment's cold itself.
I'm not cold, but our old office blew cold air 24/7, and we couldn't control it. I used to wear literally cotton gloves in the middle of the summer to type. It was so cold, and we actually got rid of the office because it was so cold.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable.
So, how many calories should you eat while nursing? What's important for nursing? I think it's very person dependent, and that's a hard question.
I think there's a gauge from about 300 to 500, depending on how much you're nursing, additional calories than what you would typically consume.
Right, but I think most people don't know. I mean, it's you need a lot more. Most people don't get enough.
Yeah. And most nursing mothers are under eating because they're so consumed with everything else that's going on around them.
So I think the most important thing when nursing is making sure you're getting carbs, proteins, and fats with each meal.
And eating frequently throughout the day.
And eating frequently throughout the day, because every time you breastfeed, you burn 300 to 500 calories, right? So you have to think about that. And most women dry up because they're in an energy deficient state, right? Everything's about energy. We're not getting enough, we're getting too much, we're creating balance. And most people are not getting enough, or they're getting too much, right? So we're seeing diseases of deficiency and diseases of excess, right? So we're trying to create that balance. But if you want to know more in a personalized sense, you can always set up a free consult with us, and we can talk to you a little bit more about that. Yep. Last question we'll take. Thank you guys. You're welcome. Oh, it's a statement. I see this being a paradigm issue, just like biohacking, only addressing the surface approaches. Cool. You know, we're not here to say that everything else doesn't work. What we're here to say is what we do works, because
and I think Josh and I were talking about that a little bit the other day. It's just everybody's got something to say about everything,
right? And
I think we have to really respect where somebody is in their healing process, and it might not be in line with what we believe and teach, but I think, you know, it's whatever is speaking to you in the moment is part of your journey. So honor it. It's a step in your journey. So that's all that it is. And we've taken many, many, many steps in our journey to get where we are today.
Yeah, and I mean, I was vegan for like 15 years. I just started eating meat like a week ago.
Shut up. I was for 13 though. Not
she
vegan.
Was. When I met her, she was vegan. I'm like...
I wasn't vegan. I was definitely vegetarian though. But it almost killed me at the same time. So, you know, again...
I saved her.
Not only...
I saved her. I'm just kidding.
Not only do we apply this with our clients, we've stepped into it on our own, and again, that's why it's such a strong belief system for us. But again, everybody's in their own place. So
yeah, if someone wants to go keto or paleo, go for it. It doesn't affect me. I don't really care. The reason we teach our work is because it's so powerful, and we want to share it with the world.
And it's deeper than just a physical thing.
Because
it's much deeper. It really connects the mental, the physical, the emotional.
It's sustainable. It's sustainable. Like, we still practice our approach every day, all day, right? And we've been doing it for umpteen years. It's not just the food. It's creating that awareness and that connection with everything we're doing in our life. Like, I was a little bit stressed this morning about something. It's like, what do I need for myself, you know, right now? And I was working. It's like, you know, instead of working through it and just pushing through it, I'm like, I'm just going to go for a swim, and I'm just going to do some breathing and just relax and really connect with it, talk to my wife about it. And it's really connecting with those things on a deeper level and not just connecting with your food. So I think that's it for today. We really appreciate everyone tuning in on Facebook. Thank you, Karen. Everyone else, thank you. Everyone on Instagram. I know we're kind of half and half, but
So
we
excited
wanted
you all
to
were here.
connect with everyone. As always, we are here every single Thursday, 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Every single week on Thursday on Facebook. We are going to start doing it on Instagram as well, so definitely tune in. If you are on Instagram and you want to catch the other 26 episodes, you can go to our YouTube channel,
Thanks, Raquel.
which is actually in the link of our profile of our Instagram account, and you can see all the 26 past episodes. So, thanks everyone.
Have a great day.
Have a
We'll
great
see you
day.
next
Have a
week.
great week, and we will see you next week.